It was October 2nd. It was not yet dawn. And I received a phone call while I was praying on the couch for my husband and for a priest to be able to have the courage to get in and the hospital to let a priest in. And I received this call from the lady who was married to an Eastern Catholic priest. And she told me she found a priest that would be willing to attempt to anoint my husband. And she asked me, though, if this was a life-threatening emergency, if he was about to die. And I said yes. And I informed her of the circumstance that he just had a stroke and they airlifted him to the big city and that it's life or death. And so she got off the phone and she went and made the call back to the priest to confirm that, yes, this is a life-threatening emergency. He needs to be anointed. As the sun came up, I was exhausted by this point. It was just, my whole body was worn out. It was almost like I didn't have any more tears to shed or energy to give. But my children awoke, and they would spend all night cuddled on my bed as I laid on the couch, wide awake, praying. And when they came out, you could just see this sadness in their face. And they wanted to know how Daddy was doing. And I shared with them what I had last heard from the hospital. And we started praying. And I could see my daughter. She was just looking out the window and crying, just belly aching. And she said, "Mommy, I didn't get to wave goodbye to Daddy like I normally did." She was so concerned that she didn't be able to share her love with Daddy before. They would always say goodbye, give him a hug and kiss, and he'd pray over them and tell him to be good and obey Mama, and well, he's gone. And then they would run to the front window or out on the front porch, and they would wave goodbye, and he would stop and honk his horn. That day, because we were in a rush, because we had just gotten back from the city, that he was rushing out the door, and so she missed that moment with Daddy. And my son, well, she was just turned 8, and so she had some better maturity to understand what was going on. But my son, our son, 4 years old, he had no maturity on the understanding of what was going on and the gravity of the situation. He could not comprehend what was going on. He just knew Daddy wasn't there, and that really upset him because he would spend his mornings with Daddy, and they would be the first ones up in the house every morning, and they would hang out, and he would learn how a man gets ready in the morning with Daddy. And then they would come out, and my daughter would get up, and they'd make breakfast together and eggs and whatnot. This had been a tradition that had been going on for many, many years due to my husband's work schedule. And this morning, we just sat on the couch and prayed, and we cried, and we were worried, and we cuddled, and we hugged. And then I got a phone call, and they verified it was me, and he introduced himself as a doctor that has evaluated my husband, and he was a neurosurgeon. He was the first doctor that I got to speak to in a matter of 12 hours. And he told me that my husband had a specific kind of severe stroke. And then he proceeded to tell me that my husband is brain dead and that he has no neurological um, showing of any signs of movement or reactions. Um, they said from nerve pricking to he just said there's no signs at all. And his I asked about his eyes, I asked about his body movement. They said there's been nothing. And I asked about the diagnosis. I asked about the um, scans, if I could see anything, if they could share me any more information, what they've been testing him, what medicines he's on. I got no information. No more information was allowed to be given to me. It was not at all. He wouldn't provide me the information. And I knew from there on that something was not right. And he then proceeded to ask me, did your husband have any paperwork for end of life? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, well, did he have any paperwork for medical decisions or organ donation? And immediately my red flag went up, because when they say somebody is brain dead, there is no such thing. They created this medical terminology because if you look at the history books, if they did it because they discovered that they can do organ transplant. And so if they claim somebody is dead, brain dead, that then they can do organ transplant on him. And they sell those organs. And so I was not willing to move any more forward on that particular conversation. But my husband and I both had that we were not going to donate, and we wanted to fight for our lives. And he was trying to get me to push for organ donation. And I suddenly said, sir, I'm a Catholic. And what faith are you? And he says, I'm a Catholic. And I said, well, as a Catholic, you and I both know that the first decision is on their soul, is around their soul. And as a Catholic, the first thing I need from the hospital is I need a priest to be able to get into that hospital and anoint my husband. And he proceeded to tell me, ma'am, that's not possible. Your husband cannot have a priest come and anoint him. It's not possible. Nobody's allowed in the hospital. We're on lockdown. And I said, but you want to do this procedure on him, and you're telling me he's brain dead. But as a Catholic, this is the first priority before we can move forward on any other decisions. And he says, I'm sorry, that's off the table. We can't allow anybody in the hospital. And I said, so do you have a priest that is working in the pastoral department? And he says, no, we have no priest in the pastoral department. And I said, do you have a volunteer priest that can come in that's on your list? He says, no volunteers are allowed to come into the hospital at this time. So my whole being was just like in total shock. Like the second time the hospital has said, no, not at all. They're not going to allow this. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Is this America? Is this freedom? Is this, like, seriously? Don't we have our religious freedom? Don't we have our constitution, our military law? What just happened? And I was so crushed. And I said to him, I said, sir, until you can guarantee a priest enters this hospital and anoints my husband, there is no more further discussion. We must have a priest anoint my husband. And is there anyone that I can go to in the higher up departments to make this happen? He says, no, there's nowhere you can go. No priest is allowed in. And so I was very professional on the conversation, and I proceeded to tell him that there was nothing that we could do until we make this next step happen. And so we left that conversation, and I just started crying. I'm being told that my husband is brain dead. I'm being told that they're pushing to have organ transplant. And most of you don't know what that means, but what that procedure is that they basically, as the person is alive until their heart stops. Brain death is not legit because the brain is still alive until the heart stops pumping. And science has proven that it still operates after the brain has stopped for a period of time. That's new science has come out. So the reality is that they're playing games with me in this situation, and they're all about the money, and because they can sell organs, and then they charge me for the bill for the procedure, and then they go make the money on the organs. So I was just so completely shocked and just crying and cannot believe what they're doing. And so, he's medically kidnapped in a hospital. So now I'm like, is there any way to get this man, my husband, out of there? Is there any way that I can transfer him and bring him home for his last moments? Is there any way that I can, like, somehow do something for him so that I can get a priest to him? And my creative brain was thinking all these different things, and we got praying, we got talking, we were just hoping that there was a way for a priest to anoint him. That was my number one duty as a wife, is his soul. And so I had a duty to my husband, to his soul, to ensure that he was anointed. Now, the blessing in disguise was that the morning before, 24 hours before, my husband woke up and he said to me, honey, let's go to church. It's our engagement anniversary. And our priest was gone, so we had to go to the city to go to a church. And when we went to a church, we received Holy Communion, went to liturgy or Mass, we went to confession. Then I felt the Holy Spirit tug on me, and we went and visited the Missionaries of Charity, Mother Teresa's religious community. And we had adoration time there. We prayed with them. We prayed the rosary. We had all this spiritual experience. And then we met up with their priest. As he was walking out, we were walking out, and we asked him for his priestly blessing over our family. And he gave words of wisdom, and then prayed over our family and blessed our family. So I knew that my husband's soul was already in a good, holy state. but still the anointing is my duty as a spouse. I have a responsibility. And somehow I was going to make this happen. So amongst all of the chaos of the morning and the wailing, the crying, all of the emotions, on top of that, then I get a call from pastoral department. And pastoral department says, it's a woman, and she's a pastor, and she's telling me, ma'am, who was the priest that came in to anoint your husband? A priest anointed my husband? Like, I couldn't react to her because she had a very upset tone. And I knew something happened. But I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was excited. But she then proceeded to tell me, to interrogate me, to find out who this priest was, because he violated their hospital policy. And apparently the diocese made the decision and told the hospital that they were not going to send priests in, but a priest shows up. How did this priest get in? Well, the story I'll tell you later, because I didn't find out about that story, how he got through the hospital until 16 months after. But what I will share with you was that lady, she interrogated me to find out who that priest was. And I didn't honestly know who this priest was. I had a sneaking feeling, but I wasn't yet told, and it wasn't yet confirmed to me. And so I proceeded to just tell her I don't know, because I didn't. And then she said, but who was it? And I'm like, I don't know. And she says, he came up to your husband's room and he prayed over him, and he was in the ICU and he wasn't supposed to be in there. And she's so upset at me, and she's freaking out and screaming and upset. And I'm like, what? I said, ma'am, this is not the way a professional talks to a family in a crisis medical situation, especially the pastoral department. I would rather we hang up right now, because this is not what I need to hear from you right now. And I clicked the phone off. I proceeded to move forward on getting my children breakfast, when then I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting so goosebumps right now as I share this from the Holy Spirit. Because all of a sudden I get this call from that woman, and she confirmed that the priest got in. The priest got into the hospital. He got into a lockdown hospital. Like, how is that possible? I was so shocked. I said, would you please talk to this priest? And I would like to talk to him. She's like, he's busy. He's doing a retreat in the city, and he's not well today, and he just doesn't have time to talk to you. And I said, well, can you ask him what my husband looked like and how he reacted and everything? Please call me back. I hadn't yet seen my husband. 12 hours went by. I hadn't yet visually seen my husband. Hadn't touched him. Anything. Nobody from any department contacted me about how I can have that contact, how I can have access to his medical records. The communication was horrible. So I proceeded to wait for her call as I get my children ready for the morning. She called me back a little while later, and she said, She said Father came in and anointed him, and she said that he was responding to him, and he even squeezed his hand. They lied to me. They lied to me. If I would have said yes to organ donation, they would have murdered my husband. Because that procedure is murder. That's what it is. They don't even give them medicine for pain for the surgery to remove those organs. They don't put them under to remove those organs. They're not given any pain medicine, because in their mind they're brain dead. But the reason they do it is because they can't have all those chemicals of the medicines in the organs when they take them out and to put them in somebody else's body or do science on them. And that's what they do with babies when they go and they take them out partially for abortion, or they fully take out the baby and then they splice him open and they surgically remove the organs. They do it without any medical medicine or anything, and the baby is screaming. Can you imagine? This is why I'm telling you the story. My husband was reacting to the priest. This priest is a well-known priest. He goes all over the world. He's a missionary. We knew him personally, and it was God's blessing that he came in, because he and my husband talked back and forth multiple times. And my husband would listen to his radio shows on the Catholic radio, and he would listen to him, and he would go to his masses, and he knew him, and they knew each other, and it was just like God's whole will was in this. My husband wore the brown scapular, and he just had such deep devotion to Mary and the brown scapular, and he prayed the rosary, and he heard the month of Mary, and Mary provided a priest. Mary provided a priest that's consecrated himself to her to come into the hospital that's completely locked down, and it's completely impossible that he got in there. But through God, everything is possible if we just trust him. I don't know how many souls, but there was many souls that were denied being anointed. It is only through our faith and our persistence that my husband was anointed, from the courage and strength and the faith of that priest to our faith, and he got in there. How many priests and bishops are that courageous right now to worry about saving souls? How many priests are really, really there? Because I called many. Because I even reached out, even to my bishop. Nobody would respond to me. No priest would respond. But one priest responded out of all the churches, and he called them. He did the best in his mind he did. And they didn't call him back in the morning like they promised. And he called there, but they wouldn't let him in. Somehow, and I'll tell you the story later, but somehow, through the grace of God, this priest got in. You priests, you better shape up and start taking care of souls. And you lay, you need to start speaking up. We have a right. It's our right. It's our birthright to be anointed, to receive the sacraments, the mysteries. We have the right to this. Don't let anyone say no. Don't let anyone say no. You fight. You trust God with all your being, and you live in that faith, and you believe, because that's all I had. That's all I had. That's all I had. And that's when God came through, because we all had faith and we all trusted God and His Blessed Mother. To think the horrors that took place during this time. This isn't new. This stuff has been going on in the medical field for so very long. I will proceed to tell you this story, more of our story, in the next videos ahead.